That's the part of the brain that's actually controls a great deal. What you and I learned in medical school, Dr. Mercola, is controlled kind of balance and coordination. But boy, it controls a lot more than that. And this is one of the target areas for aluminum toxicity and a common manifestation of problems in autistic children. And I want to punctuate that, because I don't think in the basic research for autism, I don't really think that we've emphasized enough cerebellar dysfunction. And let me read you from this list. And it's pertinent because aluminum really, really loves to attack the Purkinje cells. Some of the impairment you get from generalized dysfunction of the cerebellum. And I'll ask you, does this sound familiar to you? Inattentiveness, distractibility, hyperactivity, compulsive and ritualistic behaviors, unpredictability, anxiety, agitation, panic, self-stimulation, paranoia, hallucinations, anger, aggression, irritability. And this is half the list. Okay?
Sure.
This is a list generated from cerebellar disorders, from the literature that goes back for, decades and decades, and this is what they observe in cerebellar dysfunction. And we have a toxin here. Now, mercury targets the cerebellum too, no question. But mercury actually spares the Purkinje cells, which are the exact cells that aluminum targets. So I find it a pretty impressive, biological plausibility, if you will.
Oh, that's interesting. So I want to thank you for providing all of us with this important information about aluminum. It just adds another nail in the coffin from my perspective of the reasons that one needs to be concerned about selecting and using vaccines as an approach to protect and provide safety for themselves or their family with respect to infectious diseases. I just think there's, in most cases, for most people, far better alternatives and less toxic and with side effects. It just doesn't make sense to be using these dangerous approaches that have well documented and observed side effects. I guess maybe one just last comment. Frequently, Dr. Shiv Chopra, who also spoke at the conference, was particularly concerned about the route of administration. So almost all vaccines are administered through injection, and he was concerned about the proteins and some of the other issues that were particularly proteins that were administered that way that might be causing more significant side effects because it was a route of introduction that really we weren't designed for. So I'm wondering, from your perspective or view, if there's a significant difference between administering the aluminum through a vaccine versus receiving, aside from the absorption component, assuming you'd make those similar, assuming the same route of swallowing it orally.
That's a good question. Superficially, I would say no, that the toxicity profiles are very, very similar. Now, saying that, I could divide those toxicity cases I collated and look at more carefully. But at the top of my head, on the surface, very similar.
All right. Well, I suspect that would make sense. All right. Well, again, I thank you for the information, and we'll be providing people with some of your written comments on this so they can read that also, and certainly a transcript of our interview. So thank you very much.